What's up, everyone? I have shot this intro about 20 times, and I'm getting tired of reshooting, so we're just gonna stick with it. If it's rough, if I make mistakes, say things I shouldn't, whatever, we're just gonna keep filming. This is another Fiverr video. What that means is we're gonna reach out to folks on Fiverr who are offering their PC building services, and we're going to pay them, and essentially it's like $5, right? It's nothing expensive, to kind of curate us list of PC components that we could use to then assemble a full-on build in real life, right? So they'll all be given the same budget. This time it's $1,500. We tightened down the rules just a bit so that there aren't any, like, I don't know, interpretations we aren't expecting. Sometimes it's not fair if one person includes a used part from eBay and another person doesn't because he or she doesn't think that you can use used components, right? So we've tightened down those rules, and I think you're going to enjoy the outcomes here. I haven't actually looked at any of these lists, so this is going to be my raw impression as well. I'll be in the same boat you are, and we're going to figure out who came up with the best $1,500 PC parts list. Here we go. Stay with me. To get rid of that annoying Windows activation watermark, head on over to VIP SCD Key and purchase a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for a fraction of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, enter your product key into your PC settings window, and say bye-bye to the watermark. And be sure to use our offer code SKGS for a sweet discount. Now I have to apologize, my office is a freaking train wreck right now, and that's because I'm filming episode 6 of Fix or Flop, actually in the middle of waiting for a component to arrive to fix the rig. So that's why it looks so rough. We're going to jump into the first listing here. This is from a person called Stinny or Steiny Tech. So you can see here I paid $5 for this service. All three of them charge the same $5 rate, by the way. I wouldn't entertain anything above $5 for this. Personally, this is about the most I would want to spend. And you're probably thinking, well, Greg, again, you got PC Part Picker. You got other sites that'll tell you what's compatible with what. If that's your concern, just use PC Part Picker. It's free. And I understand that, yes, most of you will probably be fine there, but I still think that throwing out $7 or so, once you include Fiverr's cut and taxes and what have you, isn't all that big a deal for peace of mind, especially if you're a first-time builder, which again is why we're making a follow-up video on this. So I placed my order on February 13th. I submitted the requirements. We're going to view these quickly because he did ask a few good questions. The budget was $1,500. That was what he asked. It's a very important question there. He asked for the purpose. What are you going to do with this PC? Another very good question. If I was telling him I was going to video edit with it, and that was primarily what I was going to be doing with the rig, that might change the parts that he selects. So I think this is good. I just said gaming, and I answered the same way for all three of the folks who asked this. Any requests, any brands, sizes, RGB, anything? This is a good question. It's a bit broad, but I do like that he at least made an effort to see if I wanted anything like truly custom and hand-picked. I said no form factor or brand preference. I knew by saying this that he would probably default to ATX because usually ITX counterparts run a bit more expensive, SFX power supplies and things. And then I said only request is that we stick with new parts. And this is one of the rules I really wanted to tighten down on here. I don't want eBay parts. I just want new components. So that's what we had so far, and the order was delivered the very next day. Usually these lists take, if I'm being honest with you, a few minutes to put together. But, I know they have other things going on. Obviously, I'm not the only person buying this service, right? And I'm sure they offer other services as well, or maybe have full-time jobs. Maybe they're in school, who knows? So a one-day turnaround is not an issue at all. Now, Steiny replied, he said, "Hi, thank you for choosing Steiny Tech or Stinny Tech." Again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. By chance, do you have a micro center nearby? This is a good question. Now, funny enough, I'm pretty sure someone else, one of the other two that I paid in this video, asked the same questions. So I think they're all kind of on the same mindset, and that's good because Micro Center does offer pretty sweet discounts. I did tell him no, I don't have a Micro Center anywhere near me, which is true. I'm in Florida and we don't have a Micro Center, unfortunately. He asked what my monitor was, which is another good question. He probably should have asked that in the requirements tab further up. But nonetheless, he did ask it, and I said that I have a high refresh rate 1080p 1440p monitor. I have no real storage target, just whatever you can reasonably fit into the budget, and that I don't care to overclock. That was his last question. So with those questions out of the way, within the next hour or two, he sent a PC parts picker list. I always like seeing PC part picker links. Again, it makes their job very easy, and it also is peace of mind for me because PC part picker is going to run its own system compatibility check behind the scenes. So here is the list, and again, this is just as fresh for me as it is for you. I haven't seen any of these before. He started us off with a Core i5 12600K. I think that's a pretty good start in a $1,500 budget. I maybe would have liked to have seen a Core i7, but for gaming, I mean, especially in this day and age where it's really tough to get a graphics card for a decent price, he probably just allocated a bit more of the budget to the card. It looks like he did down here. He's got a $700 6600 XT, which, oof, that's really expensive, but the times are what they are. Noctua NHU12S, it's a really good aftermarket cooler. Of course, we're going to need one because we don't get one included in the box here with our CPU. A B660 Plus, it's good to see he went with a D4. This is a DDR4 motherboard, essentially, and 140 bucks for that. I just noticed, though, this is a B-series motherboard. We can't overclock. Okay, so I'm doing a bit of research here. It looks like you can base clock overclock Alder Lake, even non-K Alder Lake CPUs with some B660 motherboards. It looks like namely from Asus here, and that info might change. This might change between when I'm filming this and when you're watching this, but that's interesting to note. I still don't think you need a K series SKU with a B660. I mean, even if you wanted to base clock overclock, you don't need the K CPU. You could overclock non-K SKUs according to this article. So I think that's a bit of a stretch. Maybe the non-K SKU just wasn't available. I mean, it's still a good price, and the motherboard's pretty affordable as well. But it's kind of a weird mismatch. Moving on, then we have 16 gigs of Ripjaw's DDR4. Again, pretty good price because we're sticking with DDR4, not going with DDR5. We have an SK Hynix 1TB M.2 NVMe SSD. I like that. 1TB is a solid. That's a solid amount of storage for a PC in this price range, I think, and it comes in at under $100, so that's also nice. A Gigabyte Radeon RX 6600 XT 8GB, and this is what we just mentioned. A $700 graphics card. Welcome to 2022, folks. I don't know what else to say. He chose a Corsair. He chose a Corsair 4000D Airflow for just under $100, and then a Supernova 650 watt 80 plus gold from EVGA. I think this is a very fine power supply for this rig. Comes in at $65, so a good price as well. This is a really good find. He also tossed in a few extra fans for us, two 140mm Arctic P14s for $12 a pop, and the total comes out to $1,518.29. I think he hit the mark with this one. This is with the exception of the weird K-SKU B660 motherboard combo, and I might have to ask him specifically why he did this. I think everything else looks really good here. Now, he did include a few additional notes. I want to read this because this might explain part of his reasoning. He said, at the moment, this is the best gaming PC parts list for sure. Okay, he's confident, okay. The CPU, Intel Core i5 12600, best budget gaming CPU compared to 12400. 12600K can overclock higher RAM, bringing up 1% lows. Okay, interesting. You still picked the B660 motherboard. Noctua NHU12S. I'll just see does that B660 motherboard even support higher clocked memory? I'm not sure if it even does. I mean, I think you need both. I haven't checked recently. Noctua NHU12S Redux overkill, but this is one of the only coolers that comes with a 1700 bracket. Okay, that's fair. I don't think it's overkill. Cheap motherboard option that can do memory overclock. Okay, apparently this board can overclock memory, so that's good. He thought that through at least. 16 gigs, XMP is potential overclocking, great. 1 terabyte, blah, blah, blah. So this is the rationale. I think this is really cool. The fact that he took the time to also explain his parts choice reasoning. That's not something we got, I believe, in the earlier video we released. Actually, there might have been a bit of that, but this is a very parts specific explanation, and I think that going forward, this is what I'm going to look for. This is really nice because now I understand his train of thought. If I question anything, right, I can just bring up his points and kind of address those directly. So with that, keep a mental snapshot of Steiny Tech's recommendations. I think that he did a very good job overall. I'm still a bit confused by the chipset and CPU combo, but I think the fact that he went with a Core i5 over a Core i7 opened up his budget a bit more for the graphics card, and I think that was a smart play because I told him I only wanted to game. So I think he did a really good job overall. Let's move on to contestant number 2. So this here is George Dabrowski. He offered the same $5 service, and I made the purchase on the same day. I made an effort this time to purchase all 3 on the same day because in the first video, one of the orders I placed originally, the person just didn't respond, didn't do anything for over a week, so that kind of dragged things out. I made that third purchase again with someone else later that month, and that totally changed the pricing and availability of things, so it wasn't truly apples to apples to apples. So yeah, that's why I purchased all 3 on the same day. You can see here. Now he also had requirements, and it's kind of sort of 3 questions in one here. Budget, I said gaming PC $1,500 and then 1080p and or 1440p. I'd like to use only new parts. Pretty much the same idea, right, that I gave the first person. Now, shortly after I responded, he said, hey, thanks for ordering my gig. I have a few questions. 1, where are you located? Can you get to Micro Center or other local stores? Or do you prefer, let's say, Amazon over Newegg? This, again, really good question. The second person that's brought up the Micro Center issue, and unfortunately, again, I live in Florida. We don't have an MC, and that is a freaking shame. Any preferences when it comes to colors? How much storage do you need? Do you have access to an Ethernet connection? And then are you going to edit videos or do other tasks other than gaming? All really good questions. Reminds me of the first person again. And I responded very, very quickly. Just said no MC or local stores. I don't really have a color or RGB preference. As for storage, whatever you can reasonably fit into the budget. Same thing I told the first person. I have wired Ethernet. I don't want them to include a Wi-Fi card if they don't have to. And then I said I'm just going to be gaming with it. And a mere 2 hours after I answered those questions, the same day, I got a PC part picker link. So very quick turnaround from George. Now again, I haven't seen this list before, so I'm curious how this is going to work out. Oh, that's weird. It says overridden on the Newegg link. It's possible that this card was available for a similar price to what the first person recommended, and it's just no longer available on Newegg. Newegg stock goes in and out all the time, which is very annoying. We've got a Core i5 12600K, again, same CPU. That's interesting. Arctic Liquid Freezer 280, so 280 mil AIO. He put a manual price in there for $109. We'll see if he clarifies that later. Asus Prime Z690P DDR4 motherboard. Okay, awesome. So we have a Z690 board this time around. $216, so a bit more expensive. He chose some Oloy DDR4. This is budget DDR4, folks, but it works. And $62. We have a 1 terabyte NVMe from Samsung, $150. And then, of course, our card is blank for now. He put a manual price in for the Corsair 4000D. And then we have minus a promo or coupon, whatever this is here on Newegg, $60 for a Corsair RMX 650 watt. So let's go over the similarities between these two. First off, they chose the same CPU, right? Core i5 12600K. They chose the same amount of DDR4, 16 gigs, which is fine for almost any game out there in 2022. They chose a 1 terabyte NVMe together, right? Different brands, but same idea on storage. I think 1 terabyte is a fair amount for a $1,500 system. Obviously, your needs and mileage will vary. Depending on what you're doing, you might need more or less, but I think 1 terabyte's a good start at least. They chose the exact same graphics card, and they chose the exact same wattage for PSU, and around the same price. So these two folks are almost like dead even on what they expect in a $1,500 rig in 2022. I think it's really cool, and that's definitely saying something. I think that the 12600K especially is really looking juicy for a gaming rig right now. And another point to mention, I didn't tell either of these folks which platform I preferred or which CPU manufacturer I preferred. I would have been open to either Intel or AMD. In fact, I'd kind of like to see an AMD rig included. I'm not sure what the third person did, but the fact that the first two, just out of their own, thought processes, decided to include the same Core i5, I mean, that's a testament to the viability of the CPU for gaming. Now, I want to see if we have explanations regarding the AIO and the, let's see, okay, we do have one for the AIO. He listed it on Amazon. It's interesting that that's, okay, $108. I guess it just wouldn't show up in PC Part Picker, but this is it. I mean, $109, $110, whatever, that ballpark. This is a really good price, I think, for a 280 mil AIO. Next up, we have the case. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same story. Yep, $86 for the 4000D. So it's sold and shipped by JJ Deals Marketplace. They have 5 ratings, 80% positive feedback. I'm not sure if this would be like my first place to buy it. Newegg does have it listed for $105. So this person just opted for a different reseller, so to speak. Just to save 20 or 30 bucks. That's a bit of a shame. We don't really have an explanation on what happened with the graphics card. Again, I don't think it was his fault. I'm sure it was there to begin with. By the time I'm looking at it, it's no longer for sale, right? They sold out, which is not surprising in this day and age. Yeah, anyway, he did include that 6600 XT. I'm going to assume it's similar in price to the Amazon one. He might have had it for a bit cheaper on Newegg. Newegg tends to be a bit more competitive with graphics cards. I say that nowadays, they're all kind of in the same boat, but Amazon traditionally has been a pretty bad place to buy graphics cards. They just don't have much selection from the Amazon warehouse. They're all third-party resellers marking them up a bit. Let's see, he does have another link here to another list. Interesting. Let's check it out. Okay, so this time he went with a Core i5 10400F, which is a bit older. Yep, for sure. He went with a B560 LJ 1200 motherboard, $110. We've got Neo Forza. I've never even heard of this memory brand before, but $50 for 16 gigs. CL16 3200 megahertz. That's freaking insane. That's a really good price there. We have the same 1 terabyte NVMe, which is cool. He included the same RX 6600 XT for just under $700 on Amazon, and then a P300A, a Fantex case. I'm actually using that same case right now in my personal rig. That's cool, $70. And then why do we have a 1000? Something's not right there. 1000 watt for 35 bucks? There's no way. Okay, back on the messaging board, he included a link to the PSU, which is an 80 plus bronze 610 watt from EVGA. That's oddly specific. That's actually a really good price, it looks like, for a 600 watt power supply, and it's 80 plus bronze rated too at that. And you can get all this for just under $1,200. I mean, today that's a pretty sweet system. Like I would, for the money you're saving, I would put this kind of on par with the first rig in the sense that like you're getting similar value here. Obviously, this isn't as good as the 12600K included, but you get the same graphics card, and that's where it's really going to matter, especially when you start upping the resolution a bit. You might not get the same like frame rate, let's say, because you're going to be slightly limited on the CPU side, but these are still great gaming chips. The 10400F is a really good gaming chip at $140 especially. So this wasn't something I asked for, but it is a nice bonus. It gives me a bit more flexibility if I was, approaching this with that mindset, right, regarding the budget. Maybe I don't want to spend $1,500, but I feel like I have to. Here's an alternative. So to recap the original listing, I think that, if we tacked on an extra $600 or $700 for this card, which is what it was going for on Amazon, so I think it's going to be very similar, that would bring us to just over $1,500. A bit over budget. Then again, technically, the first person was a bit over budget as well, by like 10 or 20 bucks. This one probably a bit more so, but I really like the fact that you get a 280mm AIO with this one, which I think is going to come in really handy with that Alder Lake CPU. And you get a Z690 motherboard here, so there's no discrepancy at all regarding overclocking. That is definitely something you could do, and you could, manipulate the multiplier versus having to kind of do it in a weird non-conventional way with the base clock, which we've actually done, excuse me, previously with like Skylake CPUs. We used to overclock non-K Skylake chips with the base clock method. That was a thing back then, but I would prefer obviously to do it via the multiplier, because when you start tweaking the base clock, other things also change. So the fact that this just seems a bit more well-rounded, I think I'm going to give just the slightest edge to Fiverr contestant number 2. I don't know. What do you guys think? You might disagree, but I like this list a lot. This list is really good. Now, we have one more contestant to check out, and I'm very curious as to whether or not they went with Intel like the other two. It seems like the new Alder Lake stuff is like the hot stuff, and I guess people just like seeing Intel, the latest and greatest. Maybe Zen 3 is just not as appealing anymore because there's something better from Intel, but I still think there's a lot of value on AMD's side, and I'd really like to see at least one list from AMD. So crossing my fingers here. Now, this list is from Tides 0420 and 420, and I think that I think this person also asked some questions. Let's check it out. Okay, so budget price range of the PC, $1,500. I said that I would only like to use new parts. There wasn't really much else that was asked other than what I plan to use it for, and obviously that's where gaming comes into play. So I placed my order again February 13th around 11 a.m. and I also received, let's see, a question about whether or not I had a specific brand preference. That's a perfectly valid question, one that I would ask if I was running the service. They said, I'll get to researching the parts right away. I said, no brand preference, thanks. Noted, I'll keep you updated. And then the very next morning, we got our order. He was making some minor adjustments, and then he sent, let's see, is it this list here? Okay, we also have a screenshot from PC Part Pick. I'm not sure why, why wouldn't you just link the PC Part Picker link? That's kind of weird. I guess because I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't just link the link. But we've got a list with an explanation, so let's dive into it. First off, he says, I've attached the PC part picker list. This build was made considering your preference towards gaming and newer parts. This build is future-proof. You won't need to worry about upgrading a PC anytime soon, as it can handle any AAA game with ease. Whew, okay, this guy's, he's coming in strong. And again, in this day and age, it's really tough to find a truly future-proof gaming PC, because whatever you spend on a graphics card, it's going to be overpriced no matter what. So this build will provide you a smooth and seamless gaming experience. You can play games at 1080p, 4K, and even 4K without. It's like he's trying to sell. This feels kind of salesman-y. I don't really. I appreciate the explanation, but I don't. If I was building a system for the first time and I wasn't sure what I could get for $1,500, maybe this would come in handy. I don't know. I'll let you guy decide in the comments. So the 16 gigs of RAM is good enough for this build. You won't have to worry about running out of RAM, even when multitasking heavily. Okay, that I could very easily saturate 16 gigs. It's very, very easily. I'm a content creator, so yeah, I know how to do that. But 16 gigs, to get you far in gaming, but you're doing stuff other than gaming, I'm not sure. And he brought up multitasking, which involves more than gaming. So I don't know about that statement. He said, I made sure that the finalized build would come out quiet so that you don't have to hear the sound of the fans blowing air out 24/7, thus helping your focus on things that really matter. Okay, all right, we'll check that out. And they said, last but not least, this build will be a lot cooler even under high load so that your room and CPU doesn't get hot due to the emitted heat. Okay, all right, that's kind of sort of along the same lines as what we just read, but anyway, let's look at the parts. So we got a Lee & Lee Land Cool 215. We'll check this out in more detail in a second for those who aren't aware of what that is. Intel Core i5, the same freaking CPU, 3 times in a row. We're 3 for 3 on that Core i5 Alder Lake chip. I'm kind of shocked. I'm kind of shocked that Ryzen didn't squeak its way in here. I guess because I'm just saying gaming strictly, and they know that these CPUs do have a slight edge in gaming just because of the enhancements with the core architecture and whatnot. That's why they all 3 chose the Core i5. I'm not mad. I think it's a wise choice for strictly gaming. But I'm curious what you could have worked out budget-wise with a Zen 3 chip, let's say. The MSI Pro Z690 DDR4 motherboard was chosen. So again, another DDR4 motherboard, very smart. We have a 500 gig this time NVMe SSD from Samsung, and then we have a 1 terabyte hard disk drive. Okay, so the only person to include a hard disk drive here. That's nice for games. You know, it's nice to have a hard drive as well. RAM, we've got 36 megahertz, 8x2, so 16 gigs in total. Very good RAM. He says, please don't consider opting for a single 16 gig stick. Go instead for 2 8 gig ones. It's been tested that multiple RAMs work exponentially better together compared to a single stick. So he's referring to dual channel versus single channel memory. This is true. The extent to which it helps you really depends on the platform, but I mean, he's on the right track. He says motherboard has 4 RAM slots, 2 empty after installing, so that you can upgrade your RAM in the future. That's worth noting. Pretty good point. CPU cooler, Noctua NHD 15. He says ugly but super efficient and quiet. Okay, I want to reach out to Noctua. I want to show them this and be like, hey, can you guys consider changing your product slogan for this thing to ugly but super efficient and quiet? Could you imagine seeing that on the front of the box of a Noctua NHD50? That thing would sell like hotcakes. I mean, it already does. It's a really great dual tower cooler, but that would just be the icing on the cake. I love that. I love that explanation. That's gravy there. Power supply, it shows a 750 watts, so a slightly higher power supply wattage here. Still 80 plus. This time it's gold certified from Corsair. And then graphics card, he said RTX 3060 12. Whoa, you're fitting a 3060, so you're assuming I'm going to be able to find this for MSRP. Let's see what he says here. So since the GPU prices weren't available, the PC part picker list doesn't take it into consideration, but it should be around $1,500 after you apply the GPU prices to the build. Yeah, dude, this. I don't like this because let's be honest. Do you really think I'm going to be able to find readily a 3060 for what, $600 or $700? You're assuming I'm gonna be able to find it for to squeeze it into a $1,500 budget? I don't think so. He says the prices are currently on the higher end due to chip shortage, so it might need to look out for discounts, coupon codes to get the most value out of your money. I mean, that's kind of leaving me high and dry. Like the other two gave me links to cards I could readily buy right now, but this, I mean, I could buy a 3060 right now, even on Amazon probably, but it's not going to be for anywhere near what it would need to be to squeeze into the budget. He says you can also make some tweaks to this depending on the price you get these parts. For example, if you want a more RGB look to your PC, you can replace the air cooler with a liquid one or an RGB pair of RAM rather than the bland ones, or maybe even some RGB fans. That's about it. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And this here is the screenshot. Again, I'm not really sure why he sent a screenshot instead of just the raw PC part picker link. Would have been much nicer to do it that way, because then I could have clicked on the product on their page and gone straight to where I could buy it. But yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, it's everything's okay except for the graphics card. I think the real problem I have with this is that he sculpted this entire list around the assumption that we'd be able to get a 3060 for a fairish price, right? Because I mean, let's be honest, if this card, you know, if he had factored in an $800 or $900 price, which by the way is what most of these are selling for on eBay. Some are selling for $600. I'll give you that, but most are selling for more than that. You see, $800 is very common, $900 is very common. Some of the non-LHR cards are selling for cheaper, but you know, overall, I mean, $600. Add that to the $981. That's going to put us pretty close to $1,600 again. And these are these aren't technically new cards that we were looking at on eBay, right? These are used cards. They've been opened before. And I told him strictly new stuff. So I don't think you can use the eBay excuse. Would he have chosen these other components if he had factored in a correct price for a graphics card like this? I don't think so. I personally think that he would have changed a few things to make this work. He didn't, and that again is what is leaving me high and dry. So I have to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed with this one. This is the first, I think, proper letdown. At least the third contestant from the first video in the series, at least he kind of explained the rationale and gave us alternatives, said eBay, etc. And to be fair, I didn't even clarify if I wanted used or new stuff. Here, I did clarify I wanted new parts only, and he's just assuming I'm going to be super lucky and win a Newegg raffle just for a card, right? I'm not going to win a bundle, because Newegg's been doing that lately, and I freaking hate it. But I guess what we can do now is go over the similarities of all three builds. Let's do that. So first up, they all three chose the exact same CPU, which I'm not upset by. I'm a bit let down that I didn't see at least one AMD inclusion here, but I mean, again, it's a testament to how viable these new Alder Lake chips are for gaming, especially. Even the cheap ones, even the affordable ones. Yeah, this is $279 for a Core i5 that has 10 cores. And that's a really good bargain in 2022. So they all chose the same CPU. They all chose different coolers to cool the CPU, but they did all remember, and PC Port Pick will tell you this, they did all remember that there is no included stock cooler. So they all had to kind of think outside the box here a bit. The Noctua NH U12S, I would say, is the most underwhelming, although it is still a very good cooler. And then we have the 280mm AIO along with the Noctua NHD15, which I'd say are pretty much on par with each other, just different cooling philosophies. The first person chose a B660 motherboard. I don't agree with this as much as I do the inclusion of Z690 from contestant number 2. I like the inclusion of this a lot more, and it makes more sense for the average user who's not going to be dabbling in like base clock overclocking or anything. It also opens the door for potential upgrades down the line as well. If you wanted to swap your 12600K for a 12900K, let's say, you don't need to upgrade motherboards for it to really make sense. All three of them chose 16 gigs of DDR4, granted from different brands. The prices were fairly similar. This kit here was a bit more expensive than the other two, if I recall. Yeah, this Oloy kit was $62, and then this kit here, Vengeance LPX, was $69. So builder number one, again, a bit more expensive on the memory. Granted, it's slightly faster, but still, I'd pull back just a tad to make other things work. They all chose very similar storage as well. 1TB NVMe from the first two, and then the third person decided to go with a 500 gig NVMe and then a 1TB hard disk drive. I think that both options are fine. It kind of depends on the person. The first two builders chose the exact same Gigabyte graphics card. Apparently there was some like fire sale on this thing or something. Maybe they just released a decent amount of stock, and so they were available on Amazon and Newegg at the time. These are just under $700 a pop, which is ridiculous, but it's not their fault. It's just the times we're working with right now. And the third person chose a 3060, which I think this was a mistake because you can't buy it. I mean, look, no price is available. It's telling you right there, it's not available. Like, what? That doesn't help me, right? But anyway, Corsair 4000D was chosen for this build here, and then the same exact case actually was chosen for the second contestant. The third person, however, chose a LandCool 215 for a similar price. I think the LandCool cases are really cool because you get RGB up front and larger fans for quiet operation. I think that this builder was correct when he said what he said about this. And then lastly, the power supply. This person chose a 750 watt 80 plus gold, and the first two chose 650 watts. This one is 80 plus gold certified, and this one is also 80 plus gold certified. I thought this was bronze. I think that was the cheaper build that he sent was 80 plus bronze. So they all chose 80 plus gold. That's cool, and they all chose similar wattages. I think that the 750 watts a bit much for this. I mean, you could make a case for it. I think it's fine, but if you're really trying to squeeze as much as you can out of your budget, you could have compromised at 650. You wouldn't have noticed. So whose list do I personally like the most, just based on my experience with this hardware and kind of how I would do things if I was building in this price range? I like contestant number 2's. This list here, they chose the Core i5, which I think is smart, but they included a 280mm AIO, which is great for cooling. You could always migrate that to another build later on, or a more powerful CPU with a higher TDP. They chose the correct motherboard in my view, a very cheap Z690 board, DDR4. They also chose cheap DDR4 to pair it with. Still 3600 megahertz, CL18, it's fine. Oloy kits are fine. We made a dedicated video about this brand, and their DDR4s, it's nothing to complain about, right? For $60, I'm not going to complain. A 1TB NVMe from Samsung, a 980 Pro is a really good drive. A bit expensive there. I might have I might have turned this down a bit. 150 bucks, we could have found a similar storage with similar speeds for $100. That's 50 bucks saved. They chose the exact same graphics card, assuming that we go with the Amazon price. It puts us just over budget, but still, the Corsair 4000D at $87.50, I think is a really good price. And then the RMX 650 watt 80 plus gold. This is a fully modular power supply for 60 bucks minus the promo code, which you can enter before checkout. So again, that brings you just over 1,500 bucks, but it's the most well-rounded. In my view, this system is pretty sweet. The graphics card leaves a bit to be desired, yes. But in this market, again, we really can't complain. We can't blame them because they're just working with what's available. With that, I hope you enjoyed watching this one. These are always very exciting, especially when I get to see these for the first time at the same time as you all, right? And we can kind of just hash through the details and maybe you guys have a different opinion about this whole thing. Let me know in the comment section below. I know in the first video, I completely overlooked the fact that the CPU and motherboard that were selected from contestant number 1 weren't even compatible. I get my chipsets and CPUs all mixed up all the time. And I just assumed they work. He didn't use PC Part Picker, and I think that was his first mistake. So thank you to those who called me out on that. It's something I should have seen, and I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea about what will work with what. That's the whole point of this kind of mini-series, so to speak. But I didn't end up recommending that one in the end anyway, so I wasn't too worried about recalling the whole video over that. But in this case, they all use PC Part Picker. We know all these components work together. You might have an issue with cooler mounting. That's one thing I didn't bring up. Just make sure that the cooler you choose includes an LGA 1700 bracket for any of these 12600K builds, because the mounting pressure and all that might not work if you're just going with a basic like LGA 1200 setup. In fact, the cutouts in the motherboard probably won't even be there for LGA 1200, so just be very careful. I'm also going to do something I didn't do in the first video. I'm going to link this PC part picker list in the video description. None of these links are tied to my personal Amazon or Newegg affiliate accounts. I won't get any money if you buy from these, but I do want to share this person's work with you. I think that it's again a very well-rounded list. And if you were in the market for a $1,500 system and you couldn't wait, right? You couldn't wait for graphics card prices to drop. You just needed something now. Then this is where I would start. Again, this one exception here with the graphics card. Just hop on over to the Amazon listing. Keep in mind, though, that some of these component prices might change over time. So if you're watching this several weeks or months after this video is published, this list might not look the same anymore. Now, if you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to let me know by giving this one a thumbs up. Smash that thumbs up button, folks. Be sure to click the subscribe button if you have not already. Click the bell notification icon so you get notified when videos like these go live. And be sure to duke it out with me in the comment section below. If you disagree with me, let me know. Discourse is always good in this setting, as long as you're not being a total prick. If you're being a prick, you're gonna get muted. You're gonna get hidden so that people don't see that you're being a prick. Because I don't want to see it either. Usually within the first 2 hours, it's pretty good. Honestly, you guys, for the most part, are very either positive or very constructive with the feedback that you have, and that's always appreciated. Without you guys, I have nothing. I have no business without views, and I'm just grateful that I get to continue doing what I'm doing thanks to all of you. So let me know how I can improve, what else you'd like to see on the channel, and stay tuned for the good stuff, including this episode here from Fix or Flop coming in, I don't know, a week or two. Who knows? It gets crazy with the schedule. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.